I did look after Smokey, but after it really, the secretary. And knowing that Miss Walker was coming back, I chased round the school and called Smokey and put a bow on his finger. So those are the funny remembrances you have of the school. And of course, while I was here, the extensions were built, that building out there came, so we got some decent laboratories. And various other changes took place. But there are, you think, what has happened over 50, and I'm sorry, those of you who were here before I came, I'm afraid I'm going to talk about 1963 onwards, because that's what I know about. But a tremendous number of changes took place. There were no computers first, and so you wouldn't have all these marvellous pictures and diagrams and goodness knows what we have around the school here today, because the only way we had of reproducing anything was on an old cassette number. So you just couldn't do all that marvellous sort of work. I can remember the first calculator that we bought. And Mrs. Rhodes, who was teaching maths and and we bought 4 calculators, and they were kept locked in the desk, which was kept in the librarian's room, which was also kept locked. Those calculators, I think I'm right in saying, this would be about 1966, cost £80 each.
In old money, that's a lot.
Your iPhones and so on. There was only one phone in school, and the staff room was downstairs on that, as you come in the playground. So someone said to me, why is it such a happy school? I think it's because the staff room was there, the room was up there, and there the twain should meet. Because in those days we had proper winters. Things had changed, and where school buses had to be summoned early to take girls out to the party, one part of the headline. And we had a scary system by which we could summon you to say that the school buses were coming early. Just do 3 rings on the school bell.
Yeah.
And I do remember very well going home, putting on the television. By that time I had acquired a television, and there appeared 4 little upper thirds in the snow, up in the hills, looking beautiful. Maybe it's from here today, one of them. And I remember one of them saying to the person of BBC television, get up there, but we couldn't get up there. They were there, so we'd ride by helicopter. One of them saying, the innkeeper has been awfully good and looked after. So I phoned this young lady's mother and said, what is she doing up there? I said, they were sent home early and the buses were supposed to get them home. Oh, she said, she got on the wrong bus. Perhaps you are here. Well, I could go on for ages and ages about changes in education. Some people have mentioned to me today the changes that we made. We were not what you might call an excessively progressive school. I think this was one of our virtues. We did a good job. And looking around at you, I can say, yes, we did do it. All had very successful careers in very many different branches of the professions, of commerce, of industry, the social services, the arts, all sorts of things you've done. But we didn't try to be very, very different. Because I would say that Macclesfield is conservative with a little C. And we were conservative. And someone did ask me when I came in, why had you never got around to telling us, unless I was asleep, why we had upper thirds and lower fourths. And I didn't explain the reason. If anybody wants to know, I'll tell you afterwards. But I can remember we had an inspector or advisor from the county came to see me, to see what this young Trinity Gibbet was doing in the school. And she said, I hope, Miss Footman, you're going to change this nonsense of upper third and lower fourth. If she hadn't have said that, it was silly, but I wouldn't change it. No one's going to tell us what we're going to do. I used to tread the corridors of power quite a bit, representing teachers at County Hall, and if I ever got into a sticky situation with negotiation, and David Cameron ought to know this one, I used to say, well, I come from Macclesfield. Because that was the thing also. I arrived at August into my new house, and I discovered all the children were going to school in August. And I missed going to start. And I realised someone put me right, and it was because of the Barnaby holidays, all the secondary modern and primary schools started their term in August. Macclesfield County High School was different.
Yay!
You were also, not many of you perhaps know this, but obviously we started as Macclesfield High School when it was an independent school way back in 1880, whatever it is. And you still sported on your badge MHS.
Yeah.
We never accepted MCHS. And when the New Education Act came in 1944, all the high schools were designated as grammar schools. And this became Macclesfield Grammar School for girls. And the governors and the girls said, no way! And they fought the county over it and won, and it became Macclesfield County High School for girls again.
Yeah.
So when I came to Miss Sharples, many of you remember the secretary, when she answered the phone, always says, high school? I said to her one day, it's not the only high school. Oh, yes, it is. I also remember going to the district or divisional education officer, Mr. Ashton, the divisional district, and said, we haven't got a notice outside our school to say that it's Macclesfield County High School for girls. Oh, he said, but everybody knows where it is. Everybody knows it. And so we never did have a notice. And now, of course, every school, nursery school upwards, has great big notices up with the name of the school. In fact, they're not schools anymore. Academies, and so on. And saying how wonderful they are. But we never needed it. We were wonderful. We still are wonderful. But it's nice to know that the building is still being used, although it won't be for much longer. I assure you, if this building, the old building, I think, probably will be retained and turned into flats. And I'm going to have my name down.
Yay!
In my room. I can't see out the window. Every sky, every cloud, but I couldn't see the ground. And I just tell you one other funny story. I once looked out. I was in the office at the time, and I looked out the office, and I saw a girl walking in, eating fish and chips. really progressive, and the sixth form did not wear uniform.
Yay.
And I don't think sixth formers ought to wear uniform. I still don't think they should. Anyway, I'm funny that way. I wrapped on the window, you see, and this girl looked round and waved. She looked in, I realised she was the careers officer. What you have to do if you're ahead is be very quick thinking. And I said, oh, hello, I'm awfully sorry. I haven't had time to say good morning to you. So nice you was one of the advised girls. And then I said, and by the way, it isn't really good practice to eat fish and chips. But I can still remember her. Now, some of you are sitting on the floor. Yes, that's another thing. When I came to school, we didn't have chairs in the hall, and we sat on the floor, and the head had a chair, and the staff had chairs either side. And the procedure was that we sang a hymn, and I sat down and there was a reading, and then I stood up and knelt, assuming that I hadn't been out walking too far. So I knelt down, and you all knelt down with me. And then Miss Black, who so was the deputy head, and saw me in, it was a marvellous person, said to me one day, Miss Footman, do you mind getting up slowly and kneeling down slowly? Because the girls were halfway up and down. Trying to obey the rules of, you're down with the heads down. And so we did manage to get chairs into the hall. And of course, just like old times, there just isn't enough room for all of you. And the only time I ever saw you all together was when it was fire practice, and you were all out on the field together, or the carol service, and when we all met together in church. But apart from that, we could never ever have room for you all. I thought I was coming to a small school. I was told I was appointed to a 3-form entry school, which would have been 90 girls in a year. When I arrived, there were 4 forms in each year, and I was read to the district education officer. I thought it was a 3-form entry school. Oh yes, he said, those are the permanent buildings. It's a 4-form entry because you've got all those huts outside. And remember the new building, and the charter block, and the walker block, and the caravan. And I remember Mrs. Rose saying to me one day, when she saw the timetable, I'm not going to teach in my car. I said, car? She said, well, you put car. And it was said, well, it's caravan. I think sometimes we're almost reduced to teaching them because you overflowed. The school increased in size. Very much did it increase into 6th form. More and more of you stayed on in 6th form and went on for other professions. When I arrived, it was still very much a man's world. And I can remember saying to girls who were saying they're going to work in a bank, you're not going to be a bank clerk. Make sure you become the bank manager. Since we outnumber the men here, we've not done too bad. Women has flourished, and here we are in not perfect, but pretty well equality with men. And that certainly wasn't the case those 50 plus years ago. And because of you, all of you, going out into the world, you managed to make that transition. And I think it's partly because of the education you received here, and we try to teach you to think for yourselves. And that was most important. Always think for yourselves. Don't let other people say, this is right, that's right. Teachers tend to say, and headmistresses in particular, are always right. But we're not. We're not. Always question authority. And make sure you make up your own minds, but only make up your minds on facts. And don't be taken in by all the false statistics that go around. So, whatever happens to the building, and I can understand it's quite sensible for the King's School to want to move into one building where they can have proper one school. It's very awkward for them moving backwards and forwards as they do at the moment. So, I wish you best of luck in all that. Despite the fact that my house is over there. Despite that fact. And I do wish you all joy in the King's School. You've got a proud act to follow, and the girls of this school will never forget it, whatever happens to that. But do keep that old building, won't you? Because I reckon that was